Hello and welcome back to Sew What with Nancy. I'm really excited to have you back as I demo the different items as we get started. If you remember, we're going to be doing our coaster project, a very beginner project for beginning sewing. And before we get started though, we're going to show you again, do a reminder of the basics of the sewing machine. So let's get ready and do a recap of the basics of sewing. Okay, let's go ahead and start talking about the basics of the sewing machine. As I mentioned to you last time, that the basic sewing machine will have a speed dial as far as how fast you want your needle to go up and down. That is for speed. Now on the right side here, there's actually a place that's called a hand to be able to have the needle go up and down. A hand dial, and then this is where your spool of thread goes. In fact, for our first project today, we're going to be changing out the thread. I don't think I want to use red because I'm actually thinking about doing the project in spring colors. As much as I love red, let's go ahead and change it to white. A lot of times I will use a white, or most of the time I actually like to use a neutral color like a cream or gray. That is best to use. Now for the spool of thread, you want to have a holder that holds that spool of thread on there, and then you can go through the process of threading your machine again. If you remember, there's a diagram on your machine most likely, or there's an instruction manual that will tell you how to thread it. So first I'm going to go through the first step, go to the second step by going down and up. And as I wind it around, I'm able to next take it through and thread the needle. Now down at the bottom here, this is our presser foot, and you have a handle to put your presser foot up and down. That's a big thing to remember, presser foot. Then you have your feet that you can change out. Right now I have a 1/4 inch foot, and then you have your up and down, lock, and back to hold that down to do a back stitch. So we'll talk about that some more, but let's get started on our first project, making coasters. So let's get started making a coaster. If you remember last time, I told you that you're going to need 5-inch squares of fabric. Now there's nothing wrong with cutting up your pieces of fabric, but what I usually do actually is I buy what's called a charm pack. Charm pack will have a whole packet of a variety of different colors that actually go together, and there's actually in a charm pack there's 42 squares, and it only takes 5. You'll be able to make several coasters out of one packet. If you remember, I showed you this packet as well last time, so there's lots of varieties in the market. You can buy these charm packs either at Hobby Lobby if you have one locally, or possibly a local quilt shop, or as I said, you can cut these up yourself. But let's choose some of these 5-inch squares, decide what am I going to have in my coaster. Right off the bat, I want to have something springy, so I'm going to choose this piece. I think I'll just set these on my lap. And you want to have a contrast, or at least something that you don't have it just like it, because you're going to have 5. 1 for the bottom and then 4 on top. I like that. I love fabric with words, and my Sew What ladies know that. Dots, yes, I have a lady that loves polka dots. Let's see, what else? Maybe we go with a different color here. I like this particular one. There's some more words, but this time with this color here, I'm going to pull that out as I choose my squares. Now, how many do we have here? If you remember, we need to have 5, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think that's going to be a nice variety for making our coaster. So let me show you how you actually lay this out to get ready to sew. So let me show you how you lay out your fabrics to get ready to sew. Well, of course, we will pin the fabrics together. Now, the pieces of fabric, they have a front side and a back side. To start out with, you want to decide what is going to be on the back of the coaster. I want it to be these flowers. Now, it may seem funny that this is going to be on the back of the coaster, but you actually have it face up, and you'll understand after a bit. And now we want to take the other 4 pieces of fabric with the front side of the fabric showing, and you want to fold with the wrong side in. You want to have the right side out and the wrong side in. We're going to fold each piece of fabric here of the other 4 pieces, and then we'll lay them out. So we're going to place them on top of this piece of fabric here. And so to do that, you always want to have the fold of the fabric on the inside towards the center, and the raw edge, that's the cut side, on the outer edge. And so with that, we're going to do it like this to have it placed like that, and then we'll have the same color on top here. Remember, the folds on the inside, the raw edges on the outside. With it like that, and before we actually pin it though, we need to weave it, kind of like a puzzle. We're going to place this piece under here like this. There we go. And then we'll take this one and place it down like this. How's that look? I think we're set and about ready to start sewing. Okay, so now we're getting ready to pin the fabric to sew. We have our fabric pieces laid out. It looks very pleasing to the eye. But remember, you need to have your folds on the inside and the raw edges on the outside. I'm really emphasizing that because if you get confused, as I have done in the past, and have the raw edge on the inside, it certainly won't turn out. So to pin this, you take a pin and you want to pin it through all the layers of the fabric to catch every piece of fabric that we have together here, to make sure it goes all the way through. And you want to keep your raw edges to where they match and are even all the way around. I always pin towards the center. That is so that when I start sewing, I'm able to sew around the edge without even hitting the pins. So we have a couple more pins to go in here. This will secure the fabric as you get ready to sew. One more here. With my Sew What Lays, I told you I have my young ladies group that's in their 20s and 30s. Anyone that starts sewing with me, this is their very first project that they start to make. So we have it pinned, we have our edges matched. I'll turn it over and you see how the pin's kind of coming through there. I want to make sure all my edges are matched up. I think it looks very well, very good. We're ready to sew. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with sewing the coaster. I'm using a 1/4 inch foot, so I have a good measurement. I'm going to go in a little ways, and I'm going to go ahead and use my hand wheel to take my needle down, hold it in place, and use my presser foot handle to bring my presser foot down. And I have it on the slowest speed just so you can see what I'm doing. So what I'm using to move the machine needle up and down is I have a foot pedal. I use my foot to operate the machine. And I have to say, I don't know if you're like this, but I have to have my shoes off in order to sew. I have to sew barefoot with socks on. Now, we've got started, but I want to lock the stitch. To lock the stitch, I'm going to press my back button so it'll sew backwards. There we go, going backwards. And now we're ready to move forward. I'm going to use my needle down button. That's a good way to have it, especially when I get to the corner. It makes it easier to turn. So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and I think I can speed up just a little bit. Ah, there we go. As I go across the fabric at 1/4 inch. A little faster. And I'll stop about 1/4 inch from the edge. I use my pull up my presser foot with the handle there. Turn a corner by turning the fabric with my needle down. Here I go. So very smoothly. Go to the edge. I'm going to pull it up to where I can turn my fabric, my press foot back down. I'm ready to sew again. Here we go. I'll get to the edge again. There we are. Turn my fabric by lifting my presser foot up, put my presser foot back down, and I'm on the last side. Get down to the end here. I'm going to lock it by going backwards. There we go. And now I pull up put my needle up, presser foot up, and and I pull out my fabric, and I can use my thread cutter on the side here, and we're all set. Okay, so now that we have it sewn together, you notice it's gone around 1/4 of an inch all the way around the edge. I'll turn around on the other side just to make sure I met all the fabrics and everything looks good. So let's cut our threads to start out with. So I'll get my scissors here. I'm going to cut my threads. And then I need to remove the pins. The pins could have been removed as you sew around it, or you wait till afterwards since we wasn't run into it. A lot of times we'll remove the pins as we are sewing. So now that we have it looking like this, now we want to cut each corner up to the thread. Don't cut the thread, but just cut the corner. And the reason you want to cut these corners like this, we are going to be turning this fabric, and this will make for some nice, crisp, pointed corners. I'm cutting each corner here. Now that I have all these pieces of fabric, I need to have a place to put all these scraps and threads. So now that we have each corner cut, now I'm ready to turn it. And this is what's going to be the finished product in just a moment. I'm just going to start turning these fabric around, and look at there. That piece of fabric that we had at the bottom facing up, well, it is facing down, but that's the bottom of our coaster. So I'm using my finger to kind of turn around, pressing my corners out. But let's take this tool here that's very handy for poking your corners out, because I want to be sure that I get those corners really pushed out nice and clean. Got 3 more to go here. Here's another one. Looking good. I'm just simply putting this inside where those folds are at to where I can push the corners out. Very smooth, but not too hard where I don't poke a hole in it. But one more here I think needs to be done a little bit better. There we go. If you ever find that when you start doing this that some of the fabric didn't catch when you were sewing, then you would have to just turn it back the way it was and catch the places that you miss. Fortunately, in our first run here, we have a completed product of a coaster. What do you think? Now that we have our coaster finished, you can go ahead and make several more. But to get started for our next project, I thought for fun, and this is what we did the last time with our Sew What ladies, is let's make a 2-pocket purse. And this has pockets in. You're thinking, oh, pockets already? Oh, it's a simple project. You will really like this. To make this particular project and make a 2-pocket purse, you will need 2 pieces of fabric. I use pre-quilted fabric for that particular one, and the size mentions that you need is 6.5 inches by 20. You need 1 piece of fabric that's pre-quilted, that's 6.5 inches by 20, and then you need another piece of fabric that's 6.5 inches by 20. Now, if you decide that you don't want to use pre-quilted fabric, that's fine. You can use regular fabric. I have one here ready to make for my granddaughter, and she chose this fabric. So we have 2 pieces of fabric. Remember, 6.5 inches by 20 for both pieces of fabric. But something else that you will need is some interfacing. I like using the fusible fleece. So you have your choice of having pre-quilted or regular fabric with fusible fleece, 6.5 inches by 20 on all pieces. Now, to move forward with our projects, I've really enjoyed showing you this demo. I hope that you have liked it as well. Be sure to press your like button. Do a thumbs up. Be sure to comment. I love to read all the comments. And most of all, subscribe, share, and in your subscribing, be sure to click that bell. That way you're notified. And I want to give a special thanks to my granddaughter, Allie. She's the one that's doing the videoing, and she's the one that got me started with this YouTube channel. I hope you enjoy it.